Welcome to another episode with your chapter crush, sweetheart. This is Everblue Presents When You're Enough, a chapter crush, sweetheart series. Bronwyn, Chapter 25. Don't get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life. Dolly Parton. Knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks like the police? Can only be Michel. When I look up, he already has his coat on over his blue dress shirt and black pants, and he's wearing a smile. "What's up?" I ask, my brows shooting up. He approaches my desk slowly. "Can't a man come to take his wife to lunch?" His eyes widen, looking to the side and back at me. Looking over his shoulder, I see half the finance department is hanging out of their cubicles across the hall, trying to appear busy, but definitely spying. I smile widely at him. "Certainly. Let's do this." I wonder if he realizes this is our first time ever eating out. Well, unless he counts the hot dog cart outside of the Met. Reaching into my desk drawer, I pull out my green purse, trade my heels for my sneakers, and grab my coat as I walk around my desk. "Let's go, husbando," I tease. I wasn't expecting him to look down at me in surprise or with so much interest. It's almost dazzling. Until I remember there's an audience. "What are you in the mood for, my love?" he asks, smirking as I close my door. "Ah, he wants to play house for our nosy co-workers." Wrapping my hand around my arm, I smile as we join a few others heading towards the elevators. Since we have an audience, just as we did the last time he used that particular term, I ignore the butterflies it stirs. They have clearly gotten lost and landed on the wrong person. "I think I can go for anything, baby." "What about the lunch counter down the street?" I ask as we join the first wave of lunchgoers waiting at the elevator bank. His gaze snaps to mine, surprise lighting his eyes as he nods his head side to side. "If that's what you want." "What do you want?" I ask. "I was hoping for anything that isn't a burger. I've had far too many since moving here, but I'm sure I can find something else at this counter place." "Hey," I smile. "The lunch counter is a local institution, but if you want, we can walk to the west side and have ramen today. And tomorrow, you can pick what you want. My treat." He gives me the side eye as the elevator doors open, and after a few people get off, we wedge ourselves in behind several others. When we stop at the next floor, 3 more people pack on. At this point, my back is firmly pressed against Michel, but there's nothing I can do about it. And as we stop at every floor between ours and the lobby, my back is getting warmer and warmer. It isn't helped when he leans down near my ear and begins rapidly whispering in French. "If you're trying to win me over, Winnie, you don't have to go to such lengths." I know he's joking about the situation, but I'm already in a weird mental space. "I beg your pardon?" I return. "These are close quarters, as you can clearly see." A shiver races down my spine as he chuckles, resting a hand on my shoulder and continues to tease me. "No, love, you won't find me complaining about this. I was merely referring to—" "Oh my goodness, will we ever get off this thing?" Someone unexpectedly exclaims from the back of the elevator as we stop at another floor. Someone else jumps in with, "I know, it's hot in here and we have a guy over here trying to chat up a woman in Italian or something. Let me off this thing." As a few titters go up, I shift nervously, but yeah, still absolutely nowhere else to go besides Michel's extremely firm chest. Just what kind of workout routine does he do? Once again, I clear my throat as I force my mind away from the memory of my very close contact with said chest. Michel chuckles as he continues in French. "I meant you were trying to impress me with the husbando bit, and now you're suggesting ramen? If you keep this up, you may have a lunch date every day." I chuckle in response as I remember his admission that he had been an anime fanatic as a child. And although my Japanese is terrible since I haven't watched nearly as many J-dramas as I have C-dramas, I still use it to reply. "It's my pleasure, boss." When his breath hitches in his chest, I feel it against my back. Now I'm not sure if the thumping I'm feeling is coming from my heart or his. "You didn't tell me you speak Japanese," he responds in kind. "Only enough to order ramen," I respond with a smile. He sniffs comically and whines in typical anime fashion. "All done. I think I might actually cry." I gently attempt to elbow him in the stomach as I huff a laugh, but he catches my arm and doesn't let go. Instead, he begins rubbing my arm, releasing another set of butterflies. Seriously, if they can't tell real interest from acting, I'm in big trouble. He says something else in Japanese, which I don't catch. Again, because my Japanese is terrible, and not because I was distracted by the way his breath was hitting my ear. Oh, come on. If she was interested, she would have said so already. Please give it up so the rest of us can peacefully travel the next 6 floors in this sweatbox. Kudasai. They finish, thanking us in Japanese. The elevator titters again, and at that Michel drops my elbow. I hate that he'd feel ashamed by the loudmouth in the back, so I crane my neck around in the direction of the voice. I couldn't be more surprised to see Ben's tall frame as he smirks down at his phone. I can just make out the sling from under the coat slung over his shoulders. Isn't he on leave? What's he doing here? When he looks up and catches my eye with a wink, I realize he's teasing me and Michel. Shaking my head, I smirk. Game on. It's okay, everyone. He's my husband, I call out, which is met with gasps by the few people on board who know us. Ben shocks me yet again by laughing before responding, "Oh, so that's it." Then in Japanese he says, "You should smile for the man." Michel rumbles in laughter and responds something along the lines of the hero needing to work for his wages. Then their conversation becomes too rapid for me to keep up. I reach down and take his hand as the doors finally open to the lobby, leaving no room for doubt in the minds of those around us. Yet, as his hand closes around mine, I wonder if that was a step too far. When we're out of the building, I try to pull away, but he doesn't let go. Peering down at me with a little frown between his brows, he asks, "Do you mind? I think it's an appropriate amount of affection between married friends." As we begin walking, I smile at him teasingly. "Do you think Ben is going to stalk us to make sure we're holding hands?" He shakes his head with a little smile of his own. "No, he went the other way. Besides, Ben is the last person on my mind right now." I chuckle. "Okay, well, come along, my husband. Let's get some ramen in you. I only have 30 minutes for lunch, and it feels like we spent most of it on that slow elevator. Around us, people are speeding by, likely on their own short lunch breaks. When we worked from home, we took more time for lunch since we could answer our emails wherever we were. But now that we're back in the office, I know I'd better get back in the swing of things." Michel scoffs. "Why do you only take 30 minutes for lunch?" My brows rise as he continues. "Salaried employees are entitled to an hour here. It's far short of the 2 hours you can take in France, but it's still more than what you're suggesting." We stop at a crosswalk, waiting with the rest of the midtown lunch crowd for the light to change. "I usually have a lot to do," I respond with a shrug. "The more I can get done during the day, the less I have to take home with me." His brows shoot up. "Have you been taking work home?" As the light changes, I chuckle, recalling the emails that I'm usually responding to long after 5:30. "Of course. Don't you? How else do you juggle so many cases?" A look of horror runs across his face. "Not by giving away my time to the company. They pay me for the hours I'm to work. What I do outside of that time is my business and not to be shared without cost." My brows shoot up. "Well, what if something isn't finished and you're on a tight deadline? What if you feel you aren't able to make your deadline?" He scoffs as we maneuver around people staring up at the skyscrapers around us. "That's when I have a meeting with my superior and tell him that he will need to lessen the load or adjust his expectations on the timeline. Simple." I gasp, nearly stopping in my tracks, but he gives my hand a gentle tug as he glances at me. I frown as I start walking again, my steps much slower. "How many times have you been fired?" I ask uncertainly. "Never!" he exclaims, his thick brows jumping up in surprise. "Why would they fire me for being honest?" For the first time ever, I stop dead in my tracks in the middle of a New York City street, and ignoring all the teeth-sucking and sighing, I just off into a fit of laughter. "Never!" I gasp. "That's unbelievable. So these conversations happen in your mind then, like the rest of us." He truly looks perplexed, though a bemused smile lights his face. "No, that's what I say." When I start giggling, he takes me by the shoulders and steering me through the flood of people, we stop at the side of a building, out of the way of traffic. "Why are you laughing? It's the way things are done." I look up at him now, completely baffled. "You're really serious?" "My dear, there could be a million cases. I agree to sacrifice my time, not my life." He scowls, looking down at me. "I'm coming to understand that isn't how it works here." I shake my head with a sigh. "Unfortunately not." Pushing off the wall, I merge into traffic once more. When he takes my hand again, I raise a brow but continue on. "Here, if you dispute your boss, make too much of a fuss, or even express reasonable expectations, you can be let go without cause. They can just say, 'Thank you for your services. Have a nice day.'" He rolls his eyes as we skirt a plastic bag blowing by. "That seems like the opposite of freedom to me." I smile as we approach the ramen restaurant. Glad the line isn't out the door yet. If I've learned anything, it's that freedom is a construct. His brows rise as he crosses behind me, putting me closer to the building and takes my other hand in his. You think freedom really doesn't exist? I snort as the line inches forward. Not the way we've learned it. It's too fluid a concept. It means different things for different people, and no one is interested in what freedom looks like for the next person because they're all worried about their own personal freedom. Michel smiles, his eyes more blue than gray in the sunlight. No, this is an interesting thought. It's something we learned when studying law, that freedom isn't an absolute, that there must be limits or boundaries. A person can do what they want within those limits, but the law itself prevents absolute freedom. Bravo. Right, I agree, inching forward as someone else leaves the restaurant. Laws are the only reminders that almost everyone accepts to tell us we aren't just here for ourselves, that we have to think of others, which is why a place can be more free or have less restrictions, but there must be restrictions all the same, or else every night would be the purge. Michel watches me intently as we quietly discuss social duties and the balance of free will with conscience. By the time we've ordered, paid, and sat in the last vacant cubby for two, my stomach is growling, but Michel, as usual, is energized by the topic. Seeing how animated he becomes when discussing something that interests him will never get old. As it is, his gray-blue eyes are aflame, and his hands gesticulate wildly as he accents his point. But don't you agree that since it's a construct, laws are also meant to intrinsically preserve your freedom too? I squint at him as I pull out hand sanitizing wipes. To some degree, yes. Ah, he says as I offer him a wipe and he uses it. Thank you. Take, for instance, your labor laws. As our bowls of ramen arrive, I bend my head to pray, but Michel takes my hand to pray for both of us and immediately resumes afterwards while I open my chopsticks. Your labor laws require a certain amount of time be set aside for every few hours you work. That's personal time meant for your well-being. It's meant to keep your employer from encroaching on your right to take space, refresh, or handle personal business during the workday. Right, I say as I chew. But it's still in the middle of the workday. They need things done when they need it, not on my time. I watch in amazement as Michel inhales his noodles, then smirks. These are delicious. And you're right. That's what the employer believes, which is why the law needs to exist in the first place. Let me ask you something. What are the official hours of your workday? 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., but I'm supposed to have a 1 hour lunch break. He acknowledges, slurping his noodles. So, you're there, or tied to work for 9 hours a day, but you're meant to work 40 hours in a week, which you know because your pay stub every 2 weeks says you're paid XYZ for 80 hours. Yes? Then what happens to the 1 hour lunch break? Those extra 5 hours per week meant for lunch are unpaid. And your laws say your employer is not entitled to that unpaid time. My mouth drops at the realization he's right. I hadn't considered that. So, all of that time when I was returning early to get more work done, you were gifting them time that they have not repaid you for, he says, eyeing me over his empty bowl. Ha! I scoff. This whole time, I thought I was being a good worker. I thought if I just kept my head down, did my work, proved myself. I guess I'm the fool for that one. He shakes his head as he begins his second bowl of soup. No, he finally says. A bit naive, but not a fool. A fool would take this knowledge in and continue doing things the same way. Where I would have been offended by his candor before, now I smirk, recognizing his frankness for what it is. It's his way of showing he cares. Well, I certainly can't keep going on like this. I guess that means I'm also reconsidering leaving work at work. Ugh, I groan. Brad is really going to hate this. He already complained today that I haven't been helping enough with his work lately. Michel levels me with a serious gaze as I drink my soup. How long are you going to let that go on, Winnie? He asks as I silently consider him. I sigh. Michu, the moment I say something, things always go sideways. As long as I don't rock the boat, he has nothing to say. Michel looks down at my empty bowl, and stacking his on top of mine, he carries our utensils to the drop area as I walk to the door. As we step out into the bracing wind and begin walking towards the office, he takes my hand and tucks it into the pocket of his coat. Consider this, Bronwyn. You've kept quiet and hoped that things will get better for how long now? And maybe speaking up will cause other trouble and hardship? But the only difference is that it will be a change from the trouble and hardship you've already been suffering. I quietly consider his words as we stop at a light. That's possible, but usually it's the nail that sticks up that has to be hammered. Is it worth it making noise for the slight chance that it will make a difference, when it could certainly mean getting demoted or fired? Using his free hand, he reaches up to push a long tendril of hair behind my ear. Staying quiet and open probably works just as often as speaking loudly doesn't work. But at least when you're loud, people know there's a pain point. The light changes and we cross the street with the rest of the crowd. You likely should have been promoted at some point to VP, but Brad has occupied that position and hasn't been promoted to senior VP. Ever wonder why? My brows lift in response. No, I hadn't considered it. Michel nods as I pull him to a stop outside of Soccorso's. The famous Italian bakery is always bustling around this time of day, but the line is pretty short. I just want you to try something, but I'm listening. He moves to stand behind me as the line inches forward. Well, have you considered that he couldn't be advanced as long as he wasn't doing his own job? I look up at him stunned. No. Is that what Ben said? Michel chuckles. Believe it or not, darling, we don't discuss work when we're together. No, this is just my observation over the last 2.5 months. But if I see it, I'm sure Ben has long seen it. He nudges me forward as the line moves behind me. I turn around to ponder his words as he continues. Ben likely also sees that you're either too tired to give your own job 100% or you're really outshining your boss. And that's why Brad hasn't promoted you to senior director. Wow. I don't know how I missed that. So you think I've actually been hurting myself and Brad by not putting my foot down? There has certainly been no reward in it for either of you. He shrugs when I spin to look at him, his eyes sympathetic. I groan as I face forward. It's certainly something to think about. When his arm falls across my shoulders, I glance up in surprise as he comes to stand beside me. So, why are we here, Munchkin? What? I sputter with a laugh as his eyes smile back at me. Munchkin? Since when am I a munchkin? He holds up a hand and looks at his nails, as if you don't know that you're short. I'm of average height for a woman. I elbow him in the side as he chuckles. And we're here for the best Italian cookies and hot cocoa in New York City. I'm glad you have limited it to the city and not the world, he teases, eyes sparkling. I have no interest in debating cookies today. That's why. I cheekily respond, which is met with laughter. Anyway, what was up with Ben earlier? I know he was teasing, but it's not like him. I immediately regret my question when the teasing light leaves his eyes. I suppose he wanted to see how we would react. Why does a person tease anyone he likes? Really? I scrunched my nose, since it seemed there was more to it than light-hearted fun. Okay. We move through the doors, and it's much quieter and warmer in the narrow counter shop. As the line moves forward, I thought the subject was dropped until Michel clears his throat. Actually, he may have wanted to see your reaction to being teased about our marriage. I quirk a brow, but before I can ask, he's already giving an explanation. Yvette liked to play games, and that continued even after we were married. His gaze skitters away, and when he nervously taps the back of my hand as he speaks, I realize his ears are reddened with embarrassment, not the cold. When I would show up at our modeling film to pick her up, she would pretend to be a single woman, and I would have to flirt with her to get her attention. Depending on the mood she was in, she would either be into it or... He clears his throat as we move forward. Sometimes it would get me in trouble when she let people form the wrong idea of my being so persistent, and, well, she would refuse to bail me out, even going so far as to say she didn't know me. He sighs heavily as my mind whirs, trying to figure out why someone would be so cruel. I give his hand a squeeze because I can imagine the fun at some point turned into an awful game of roulette. That must have been painful. I'm sorry you went through that. Michel's chuckle is laced with embarrassment. Yes, well, I'm going to guess you passed Ben's test with flying colors. Although I'm going to kill him when I get back to the office, he mutters. As we're the next in line, I pull out my wallet. Don't worry, nothing that a few cookies can't cure. Let's get a bunch and give some to Sam. She'll make sure he's properly tortured for the rest of the afternoon. His laugh is a real one this time, and I smile in response, while internally wondering why anyone would ever want to deny knowing him. Like what you're hearing? Tune in Tuesday and Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern Time, or visit us at everblueauthor.substack.com for even more stories.